right now, host of Jim Shockey's Hunting Adventures. Mr. Jim Shockey is with us on the program. Jim, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good. Love your intro music. That was Rush, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, and it's I don't want to say, we're stereotyping all Canadians, Jim, but yes, Rush is our go-to when we talk to someone from the Great White North. And I do appreciate you coming on the program. You are on the cover of Outdoor Life magazine, the end of the year, beginning of next year issue. It's a big double issue on the influencers. And it's a really, really great article. I got to tell you, I mean, this is, in a day and age where we sort of have the clickbait media and everything has to be bite-sized. This is a nice, beefy article, gets into your backstory. And one of the places I guess I really want to start with you is talking about big game hunting. Because I think big game hunting has gotten a bad name. And you have some really, I think, salient takes on how hunting is conservation and how we can help make that point to people who are non-hunters.
Well, I mean, I agree. I probably started in the 60s. We started as hunters being stereotyped. And the big game hunters are on the leading edge of that. So we've been beat up pretty hard over the last 30, 40 years. We haven't done ourselves any favor, but I think that tide is starting to change now. We've got the women coming into hunting, the largest demographic in terms of growth in hunting industry. You know what this is? Somewhere
that means a game camera just went off. That's like we got to get to the Shockey cave, right?
Yeah, I actually have my phone on because I'm expecting a call from Wojo up in the north of Saskatchewan. He's hunting whitetails. I think he just got one, so I got a text saying kaboom, which means he got a deer. Anyway, we got off topic there. We've had a bad rap. We've been stereotyped in the press, and they're trying to, I guess, stamp us all with this trophy hunter stamp, and the stereotypical trophy hunter, negative, derogatory term, and that's just not the case. I mean, we're selective hunters, certainly. Some of us select for meat. Some of us select for bigger antlers. Some of us select for the spiritual time we have in the outdoors. In fact, all of us do. That may not be our primary objective every time, but, we're all selective hunters. I just, calling us trophy hunters because we hunt big game is I think it's just part of the process of trying to alienate hunters or anybody that thinks differently than the people in the big cities that are animal rights or anti-hunters, marginalized.
Listen, I think you're right, but I think that, and it's such a struggle because, as you say, most of the people who are going to have that stereotypical view are people who are they're not hunters themselves. They're not going out after the whitetail. They're not going out after a rhino. They're not hunters. And I think one of the big blocks that they have, and some of the conversations that I've had with non-hunters, it always comes up with, listen, I don't care if you want to go out and you want to hunt a deer and you want to put it in your freezer, but why do you need to travel halfway around the world to go hunt an elephant or to go hunt, some species that I didn't even know existed? How do you answer that question, Jim, as a guy who's traveled all around the world and then some? More than 360 big game species, free range big game species that you've taken. How do you answer that question of why do you do this?
Yeah, well, part of it is I wanted to learn for myself. I mean, I love hunting. Make no mistake. And I'm happy hunting a deer, rabbit, moose, it doesn't matter. But it's impossible to sit here in North America or wherever we're from and judge what's happening halfway around the world with conservation, with wildlife. So I wanted to go see. And I can sit here right now and tell you that I've been there, done that. I know what the situation is in those countries in terms of conservation, wildlife hunting. So for me, part of it was learning. I mean, it's my education. I want to know. I don't want to just drink the Kool-Aid and say that this is good, but not know why it's good or in practical terms, what's happening over there, is hunting helping? Is it, and when I say helping, I don't mean helping hunters. That's not my concern. My concern is wildlife. And true hunters have the exact same concern. Is what we're doing good for wildlife? Is it conservation of these wildlife species? So to go to these countries, I know what's happening there. Now, for a hunter that's maybe not going to learn, that's not his job, not trying to document this, which we've done on our television programs, how do you justify that? Or how do I justify going back to those places? Really, really simple. It's economics at work. It's supply and demand economics. If the animal over there is 99 cents a pound, and I'll use that figuratively because it's a cheap meat. So in the bushmeat market in, say, West Africa, the dikers, you can buy dikers along any highway. Because of the logging, there's roads. And with the roads comes an infrastructure for distribution of the meat that gets killed in the wildlands. So they kill the animals. They snare every single one of them because they're only worth what they're worth is meat. So if you can buy chicken for $1.29 a pound, but you can get bushmeat, dried bushmeat for 99 cents a pound, they'll buy the dried bushmeat. Hence, there's economics involved, supply and demand. Now, if those dikers in the bush are worth, say, $400 a pound, which is about what they're worth to a hunter coming over there, and that's just the trophy fees that go to the village and the local community. We're not talking about the huge sums of money, tens of thousands of dollars that they have to pay just to go over there and have guides and cooks and skinners and people driving whatever vehicles. So the cost just to the village now is $400 a pound. Do you think the villagers will tolerate one of their peers, kinsmen, going out and killing, say, 100 dikers, females, babies, doesn't matter, old, young, they don't care. Meat is meat. At 99 cents a pound, it's meat. But now it's $400 a pound. They're taking food out of the mouths of the people that want the $399 extra dollars per pound. And that's economics. They have to have value. Once that happens, they'll protect them in those communities and those wildlands. Without the value of just as meat, they'll extirpate them. They'll get rid of them, just like we almost did in North America for the meat market back at the turn of the 19th or 20th century, beginning of the 20th century. We have to have value. They have to have value.
Absolutely. And what you're saying, Jim, I mean, it's so spot on, but there's almost this, and again, I don't mean to be negative. I don't mean to be critical, because I know so many folks I know more people who don't hunt than I know people who hunt. But there's this almost utopian mindset of, well, why does economics have to figure into this? Why can't it just be about, saving the animals? And, you hate to have to go back to the, really basic stuff here, but, you put a really good argument on the table. These animals have to be worth more, right, as a renewable resource than as an exploited resource. If $400 a pound is going to be a more productive, worthwhile endeavor to save that creature than 99 cents per pound. And, at the end of the day, yes, these creatures are going to be hunted, but that's happening anyway, right? And if they're worth $400 a pound, you're going to have more regulated hunting. You're going to have a more stable or perhaps growing population of these animals. And isn't that at the end of the day what you want, whether you're a hunter or not? If you're an animal lover, don't you want as many of these creatures around and as healthy a population as possible?
That's you hit it right on the head with that. The problem is these people that are trying to stop hunting aren't trying to increase the wildlife numbers, in spite of them hiding behind that, facade. They're trying to stop hunting. And that's an ideology that they just can't live with, can't comprehend, doesn't compute for them. But the wildlife itself, they don't care. If they cared, and there is organizations that do, that people think are anti-hunting, but they're not. The IUCN, International Union for the Conservation of Nature, huge organization. They know that hunting is one of the only hopes for the wildlife in many places around the world. And yet they're construed as being an anti-hunting organization, because if they came right out and said that out loud today, they would be I mean, they would be vilified and lose how many dollars in sponsorships and donations. So they can't say it. They're leaving it up to us as hunters to tell the world. But the reality is, yes, there's organizations trying to save wildlife, and that's their ultimate goal. Most of them are trying to stop hunting, and don't ever think for a second that they're joined. They're not. They're hiding behind that more wildlife, but in fact they're trying to stop us. They don't like us, and that's welcome to the new age of lack of tolerance in this world. But
Well,
ultimately, go ahead.
Well, I want to ask you about that because, we had Ava on not long ago talking about her new book, and, your kids are a whole new generation that's, introducing a whole new generation to hunting and the outdoors. So when you look at the threats that hunters face, culturally speaking, and again that the hunters have to make their arguments, and a lot of these supporters within the world of science and conservation will kind of quietly nod their heads in the background, but they won't necessarily have your back. How important is it for that next generation to step up and to speak out? And are you concerned or are you optimistic about the generation of hunters coming up?
I'm concerned because it's in my nature to worry about the future of hunting and hunters. Do I think that they're capable of handling it? Yeah, I do. I just think that the world it's getting so fractionalized, and it's just more difficult to disseminate information, true information. I mean, they call it fake news. That's what most of us see and most of us hear, and that's what the next generation is going to have to deal with. The good thing is that my generation, we won't have to deal with it, thank goodness, because we're dinosaurs. I can barely work my cell phone. So yes, they're going to be more capable of dealing with it. Is it going to be easier? No, I don't think it's going to be easier, especially as we grow further and further away from our rural roots. We're urbanized. Look at the demographics in North America. Where 40 years ago we were still living on farms, we're not now. 50 years ago, we're removed from the process of raising that chicken from an egg, even knowing that it starts with an egg, and then killing it after we fed it and looked after it to be able to feed ourselves. We remove ourselves from that, or we have in this urban world. And the further we get away from those rural roots, the more difficult it's going to be to educate those people that are in the urban centers that make up really truly the majority of us nowadays. And yet their hearts.
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead and finish your thought, Jim.
Well, their hearts are in the right place. It's just they're listening to people that aren't telling them the truth. They'll show us starving this and give a bunch of money to this. Well, really what they're doing is financing a mortgage for somebody that is trying to stop a way of life as opposed to increase more wildlife. So I think the further we go away or grow away from our roots that made this country great, the cornerstones, family. What's happened to our families nowadays? Just watch TV. You want to see dysfunction. And that's family was one of the cornerstones of these countries, these great countries, Canada, the United States. So the further we go away from those roots, I think the more difficult it's going to be to educate people about wildlife around the world in our backyard.
Talking again with Jim Shockey, the host of Jim Shockey's Hunting Adventures. On the cover, great article from Outdoor Life, out now on newsstands. And, Jim, listen, I know you've hunted all over the world, but you want to come down to Central Virginia. I grew up in the suburbs, and 5 years ago, I moved my family to a small farm near Farmville because I agree with you. I think that we were losing something. I felt like I was losing something, not having lived in a rural environment, only having lived in the cities and the suburbs. And this past weekend, I processed 2 pigs that I raised from piglets. And you're right, there aren't a lot of people out there who raise the pigs, kill the pigs, eat the pigs, right? I mean, usually we're just step 3. We just eat the food. We don't raise it. We don't process it ourselves. And you do get something. And it's something intangible. It's that experience. It's a little bit of wisdom, I think. When you are taking your own food, whether you're raising it or you're taking it in the wild, when you're not just doing step 3 of eating food that someone else has put on your plate or someone else has put there at the grocery store, you gain something. And I'm right there with you. And I worry, too, that we are losing that. And I think that it is up to each and every one of us in our own individual ways to try to recapture that for ourselves and for the next generation out there. So you've got an open invitation. Again, I know you've hunted all over the world, but if you ever want to hunt Central Virginia, you let me know, okay?
Hey, don't push too hard. All my antecedents are from there. My first Shockey came in 1737 to Philadelphia, settled in Virginia. So I think there's still a Shockey'sville there someday. So when we go hunting, we'll also stop in and say hey to all my cousins.
You know what? I'm going to start doing some research. We'll put that together. And Jim, listen, thank you so much for your time today. I hope we get a chance to do this again soon.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you, sir. Jim Shockey is with us on Twitter, obviously, at Jim Shockey and jimshockey.com. Be sure again to check out Outdoor Life magazine.